Today we're testing out the Sigma 16mm, 30mm, and 56mm for the OG pocket camera to see how good these lenses may be for that system. But first, if you're new to the channel, my name is Anson, and on this channel we talk about filmmaking, specifically budget gear, tutorials, and a behind the scenes look at the projects that I'm working on. So if that's something you're into, consider subscribing. Now these lenses that I've termed the Sigma Trilogy are not new to the market, but I've always been interested to see how they perform as a set and also how they perform on the Blackmagic Pocket system. Now before I get too far into it, I do want to give you the disclaimer that Sigma did send me these lenses to test out, but as always, they're not requiring I say anything specifically, and so whatever I say is going to be my true and honest opinion. It is worth mentioning that these lenses have their own individual reviews on my channel, and so if you do want to see individual reviews of these lenses, I'll put a couple different cards throughout the video so you can click over to those reviews. Now in true Anson & Co fashion, we are going to break down these lenses by image quality, build quality, and my overall thoughts / who I think could be useful for. And let's start with image quality. I'm going to go ahead and get the obvious out of the way, and that's the fact that these lenses are going to be really sharp, and with all three of them being f1.4, you're going to get some shallow depth of field as well as some low light performance. Now the OG pocket camera, being a Super 16 sensor, does have a 2.88 crop, and so you do want to factor that in when looking at these lenses. Each one of these lenses are going to be a little bit more telephoto than what they originally were made to be, so you do want to factor that in. Now in the Pocket 4K, they become a little bit less telephoto, having only a 1.9 times crop. But the other thing I want to test is very similar to my comparison videos. I did want to test things like flaring, focus breathing, as well as minimum focusing distance, and we'll take a look at sharpness as well. The 16mm probably has the best flaring of all of them if you're looking at characteristic flaring. The flaring that came from the 16mm was just beautiful. It had little orbs of light floating across the frame as you pan left to right. And so that was something that was really cool that I saw out of the 16mm. Now the 30 and the 56 were really good at flaring as far as controlled flaring, but the 16 gave you a little bit more character to the flaring, which I was really excited to see. And honestly, it made me want to do more shots that caused flaring just because I really liked it. I felt like all three of them had some focus breathing. I couldn't tell which one was better than the others, and so that's where you can kind of tell for yourself as you look at the footage. Now I will say these are focus by wire lenses, and I normally mention that in the build quality, but we'll go ahead and mention that here. Now I do feel like the 56 had less issues with the focus by wire system. I felt like of all three lenses, it was the one that was most linear out of all of them. And so again, you just really want to consider that these are going to be focus by wire lenses, some better than others. So with that, let's move on and let's talk about minimum focusing distance. And it should not be a surprise. The 16mm was actually the closest that you can get to an object, had the best minimum focusing of all of them. Honestly, the standout lens for me, if you're working with the OG pocket camera, is probably the 16mm, barring manual focusing. That being said, if you are looking at these as a set, know that the colors are going to be very similar, so if you're going between them, you're not going to get a huge color shift. As we said before, the sharpness, shallow depth of field, and low light are all going to be very similar as well. They're going to be very consistent across the board. Now that being said, let's get into build quality, because something they're not consistent on is going to be the size of the lenses. Now I don't really recommend putting a follow focus system on these lenses because again, not a great manual focusing experience. Now that being said, if you do choose to put a follow focus system on these and you go between the lenses, you are going to be readjusting that follow focus system quite a bit. These are not similar in size at all. Now something to mention as well is that you're not going to be able to use the same size filters in all of these, but that's something that step-up rings are going to be able to solve. But know that the filter thread size on all three of these are going to be different, and so you may want to invest in some good step-up rings. You are going to have consistency on the overall build of the lenses. Honestly, for lenses at this price range, you're going to get a really solid lens. There's really not much more of these lenses. The only thing that you have is a focusing ring on these lenses. There's no switches or buttons or things like that. And like I said before, it is a focus by wire focusing ring. And so it will just constantly turn and 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 turn. And so with that in mind, let's talk about my overall thoughts and who I'd recommend these to. Honestly, I love these lenses. I would love them more if they had a better manual focusing experience, but the image that you get from these lenses are on par with Sigma Art Series lenses. And so the people I may recommend this for are maybe videographers. They're in the corporate environment. They're doing a lot of interviews and need something that's very clean and sharp. These lenses will absolutely do that. You're not necessarily relying a lot on manual focusing. You can do your single shot autofocus to get your subject in focus and a lot faster than maybe something something you would do with manual focusing. Now, if you are planning on making films of these lenses, you may find yourself frustrated with the manual focusing experience, being that it is focused by wire. But if that's something you're not concerned about, then by all means, these can be very consistent across the 3 lenses. And so if you do swap between them, these are gonna be very similar in color reproduction and sharpness. Whereas some other budget lenses, while you may have a better manual focusing experience, you may not have the same color reproduction or sharpness between the set that you pick up. And so that is absolutely gonna be the case with the Sigma Trilogy. So that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to see how these lenses perform as a set, as well as seeing how they perform individually. And remember, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like. If you're digging the overall content from the channel, consider subscribing. Go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Stay safe, be happy, support each other. Wash those hands, and I'll see you here next time. Peace. All right, time to go to the zoo. We're gonna go pet some giraffes.